Hello and welcome to another edition of Baba Lon's Magic Sunday School class. Today we're going to talk about the lamen. And here's a lamen that was laminated. It has the Enochian angelic script on one side and the original Latin letters as the first draftee did. Well, we'll get into all of that. We are on chapter 8 of the section of De Heptarchia Mystica. And we're going to talk about the lamen. Now, there's lots of illustrations and figures in this chapter. And I posted about 12 images, and they should appear directly below this video here on my site. And I also printed out a few things here that I can hold up. But I told you this would be challenging with a lot of images and things, but I'm going to do the best I can, and I would like you to follow along, if it be your will. The lamen. The epigram is from a magical working of November 16th, 1582. Prince Bralgus is speaking to Dee and Kelley. The angel Bralgus, one of the angelic princes named on the lamen. The lamen and the holy table are inextricably linked. By wearing the lamen over the heart, the magician becomes linked to the holy table. I cannot say it any plainer than that. But putting on the lamen and sitting at the holy table are empty gestures unless the magician has some idea of what these items represent and how they are connected. The designs for both the lamen and the holy table were distilled from tables composed of letters and names of planetary angels of the Heptarchia. Remember how we talked about the alphanumeric squares, huge numbers of squares being condensed and distilled into smaller and smaller squares, sort of mimicking the condensation process of the phases of the Big Bang. Even though the chronology of their reception is a bit tangled, it's probably easiest to discuss the lamen first. Traditionally, a lamen is a breastplate that hung from the neck by a chain or ribbon. The breastplate of the high priest of Israel is the biblical archetype for this most important piece of magical adornment. It was a square plate, a 3 by 4 grid embedded with 12 precious stones, representing, among other 12-ish concepts, the tribes of Israel, the signs of the zodiac. The lamen that the angels delivered to Dee and Kelley contained no precious stones, but displayed 84 angelic letters, arranged in a most curious and exacting manner. Two versions of the lamen were received by Dee and Kelley. The first, delivered in 1582, was rather an odd assortment of lines, squiggles, and letters reminiscent of Solomonic or Goetic sigils. This lamen, they were told, was to be made in gold and worn as a protective device. After receiving it, the magician spent the rest of the year and part of 1583, receiving material relating to the 49 planetary good angels of the Heptarchia. And I say see figure 5, which is printed below on my page here, but that's what it looks like. It's broken up into 7 sections. They're planetary, going clockwise, starting at the top. The slices of the pie go Venus, Sol, Mars, Jupiter, Mercury, Saturn, and Luna. And in each section, let's take a look at. Each section has, let's see there, a king, a prince. Their names are in capital letters there. And then 5 ministers. Pretty cool, huh? And this is the one for Saul. The 7-letter names of these angels were received much to Dee's cryptographic delight, I'm sure, by the complex manipulation and distillation of letters from a cross-shaped table composed of 7 by 7 tables. So in other words, now this is, those are the tables, 7 of them, each of them 7 by 7. Now, I didn't have room in the book to put the original design, so these are unnumbered and unlettered squares. But just to give you an idea of where all of those names came from, they came originally out of these 343 squares in this huge alphanumeric figure. The 343 squares in all, each containing a number and a letter. This process was dictated by Archangel Michael during a grueling 3-hour session. Just to give you an idea of the shape and size of this table, I've included this rough image without letters or numbers. The magicians were then instructed how to organize and arrange these 343 letters to reveal a hierarchy of planetary good angels. Each of the 7 planetary spheres was assigned a king, a prince, and a minister, just like Lon showed you. King, prince, 5 ministers. Let's see. Figure 5 shows how the 343 letters form the names of 49 good angels and how they're arranged according to planet. Starting at the top of the wheel and working counterclockwise, it'd be Venus, Luna, Saturn, Mercury, Jupiter, Mars, and Sol. Note also that only the names of the kings and princes are all capital letters. Now, I start to give you all of them, the names of all of them, right here. Okay, and they go on to the next page, like that. Okay, I'm not going to read them all to you, but I will read, for an example, their names for Venus. King Balagon and Prince Bornogo. Those letters are in capital letters. Those are the main guys of that section. But the 5 ministers are Bopnido, Besgemi, Blumapo, Bamamgal, and Besledif. Now notice they all start with B. Okay. The letters that they used to form these names didn't have the B in front. A B, they were instructed to add a B to all of those letter names, giving us these all B angel names. So all of the rest of the angels, for Mars it's Babalel, for the king and prince Butmono, but they all start with B, which is the Enochian Pa, which is a big letter in Enochian, as we will see. It's obvious from the surviving material that some technique of practical magic was intended to call forth the heptarchic kings, princes, and ministers. Illustrations of flat wooden discs containing the names of the kings and other unexplained characters tantalize us with glimpses of an organized magical system. But the sad fact remains that important source material that could shed light on this has not survived the centuries. However, just as amber encapsulates and preserves the essence of a prehistoric insect right down to the DNA, so too the lamen and the holy table capture the distilled essence of the heptarchic hierarchy and system. After receiving the names, sigils, and hierarchical structure of the 49 good angels, the magicians were informed that the first lamen they received during their actions the previous year was a false one, delivered to them by, quote, eluding spirits. They were given instructions how to create a new one, which was to be worn not for protection per se, but to dignify the magicians as worthy practitioners of this form of magic. Now, I'm going to try as painlessly as possible to illustrate how both the lamen and the holy table were created, and why I believe their use in Enochian magics is important. Now, the reader might be tempted to skim over the following material, invoking my slogan, don't try to duplicate the magic Dee and Kelley did to receive the system, just use the system they received. But I beg you to resist that temptation. By following through, even half-heartedly, the methods by which these magical tools were constructed, you will slip, however subtly, into the divine creative stream that produced them. You will become part of the same process that programmed and prepared Dee and Kelley. The key to the construction of the lamen was a 12 by 7 table containing the letters and names minus the initial B of the 7 planetary heptarchic kings and princes. So I have done that below. You can see the illustration there, but there is that table. They remove the B, put them in stacks, and see there's the prince, or the king and prince, moving from right to left. And they're stacked in order of their planetary rulership. But notice that the kings are in order: Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Mercury, Saturn, Luna, and Venus, but the princes are not. They're in a different order. So the princes and the kings don't match each other. They don't match up. They're asymmetric. We'll get to that in a second. Okay. The key to the construction of the Laman was that table, containing letters of the names minus the initial B of the 7 planetary heptarchic kings and princes. Mimicking the cooling phase of the Big Bang creation, this 12 by 7 table was condensed from that just to remind you, that all came out of that huge 343 square table. As you can see, the names of the kings are found on the right half of the table, the names of the princes on the left. Maybe I can hold this up while we talk. Hope you can see that. The names in the table are read from right to left. You will immediately notice that the king of one planet is not matched on the line with the prince of the same planet. In other words, the Sun King Bobogel is on the same line with the Venus Prince Bornogo, instead of the line of the Sun Prince Balfafas. This odd juxtaposition of planetary king and princes puts a strain on the sensitivities of those of us who like the order of our universe nice and symmetrical. However, this is the arrangement the angels insisted upon for the 12 by 7 table from which the Laman was to be formed. As we'll soon see in the following chapter, they will rectify the imbalance in the 12 by 7 table in order to create the holy table. But first, let's continue to see how the Laman is built. The basic form of the Laman is a 24 square is a table of 24 squares arranged from top to bottom. There it is. Arranged from top to bottom, 2, 4, 6, 6, 4, 2. And all of that is enclosed within a diamond square, enclosed by a square, enclosed by a larger square. Now you've got an image of that also printed right below here. The letters of the 12 by 7 table were applied to the Laman by means of an exercise that first divided the table into 3 sections, described as flesh, heart, and skin. The letters were then transferred to the blank Laman in 3 steps. Step 1, the letters of the flesh, and let's see, that's how I've blanked out everything else. Those are the letters of the flesh. The letters of the flesh were added to the perimeter of the Laman in their same relative positions as on the 12 by 7 table. So there's the letters of the flesh, and we plug them in the blank Laman in that position. That's their relative position. Step 2, the letters of the heart were added to the corners of the inner square of the lamen in a curiously inconsistent manner. I've added arrows indicating how the letters are applied. And I don't have a printout for that, but I do have that. There's the letters of the heart. And that's how they're applied. Step 3. First, the corners of the skin were added to the corners of the innermost diamond square of the lamen in a manner consistent with their relative position on the 12 by 7 table. Secondly, the remaining 24 letters of the 12 by 7 table were then braided into the remaining squares in the center of the lamen. Those are the letters we're talking about. And that's how they're applied. Put all of that shit together and you've got your lamen. Dee was told that the Latin letters of the finished lamen should be translated into their angelic script. I'll discuss the angelic alphabet a bit later. Figure 15 shows the completed lamen with angelic letters, and that's the one we've been showing. As with the ring, gold was the material suggested for the lamen, but it can be made from paper or poster board. The lamen I first used, and this is it, was printed on both sides, English, angelic, and laminated in plastic. In the area just above the top center, I punched a hole through which I threaded a black robe, a black ribbon. Well, when I got this one, I used this black ribbon that I'd always used and replaced it. So that's why this one doesn't have one of those. So here's the completed lamen. As I put on the lamen, I utter the prayer, "Behold the lamen. As the holy table conciliates heaven and earth, let this lamen, which I place over my heart, conciliate me to the holy table. Amen." To understand what I mean by that prayer, we'll next need to turn our attention to the holy table. Now we'll talk more about the holy table in detail tomorrow. But an important thing to remember is that the lamen is a version of the holy table, but the lamen is a little bit out of whack. It's perfect. It has all the perfection of the universe, but it's just a little off. In the same way as Kabbalists say that we're made in the image of God, and that human beings are a reflection of the macrocosm. I'll accept that, but I don't feel very much like God. I may have all the components of deity and the supreme singularity, all those components are floating around in me, but I feel a little out of whack. I have not yet processed the perfection of my reflection. When you sit down in front of the holy table, which, as we'll see tomorrow, is a perfect representation, it's as though my potential perfection reaches out and is almost yearning for my own readjustment into the perfection embodied in the holy table. It sets up a current, almost like a magnetic current, like, please put me back in whack. Anyway, it brings with it a charge of energy all its own when you sit down in front of the holy table with your lamb. That's it for Magical Sunday School for today. We'll see you tomorrow. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow on Monday. Until then, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Hope you're all enjoying the excitement in the news. And I hope you're staying safe. Continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will.